You got to turn the microphone on. Good evening. All right, all right. Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Kerry McCormack, and I serve the people of Ward 3. Stop right off the bat. Okay. I'll take it. There we go. Thank you, Chanel. Appreciate that welcome. I want to welcome you this evening to the Ohio City. I'm going to lay just a couple pieces of housekeeping out. And then pass it over to one of our guests here in a minute. Time is very valuable, so appreciate you as always leaning into the community. A couple quick housekeeping notes. This is being live streamed, so hello to everybody. To everybody wherever out in the internet you are. We appreciate you being with us here tonight as well. A important date coming up is August 23rd. Mayor Bibb and I are hosting a town hall right here at Urban Community School. What has taken place in that period of time, and also what the vision. Mayor Bibb and I will be here with his cabinet. And a presentation, but we'll August 23rd. Did you all get newsletters yet? Anybody get a newsletter? You did. Okay. So in that newsletter, there is a flyer with the information for the town hall. That way. A couple quick updates that you may or may not have heard of coming out of City Hall. We've had a couple really important. And what that does, really in a nutshell, is it creates safer roads for our neighborhood. I cannot go to one public meeting without hearing complaints about people running red lights, running stop signs. Able using wheelchairs and otherwise really not feeling safe enough. So what we've done is taken a big piece of legislation to force the city to design safer roads. Other piece is what we call pay to stay legislation. Housing advocates across the city of Cleveland back rent by their court protection in the city of Cleveland. We're going to go into a lot of detail on that August 23rd. Dive into these things. So there's this little place down the street called the West Side Market. There's been a lot of folks for many years. Serves better attention, capital improvement. Bottom line is vendors in the city only focus on the West Side Market. Happened because the mayor really leaned into this work. Another thing that I'd like to bring up, I want to congratulate B. Del Papa, who is the 2022 Ward 3 Senior of the Year. So if we could give a round to B. B is an Ohio City resident, and out of about 40,000 residents in Ward 3 elected. I'm going to save the thunder. You're going to read about her in the newsletter. There's senior day. You're going to hear about her. But she's an all-around incredible member of our community, and we're excited to honor her this year. So you'll see more coming out on that. Do I have any other little tidbits for you all? You'll hear more at the August 23rd. Love for you to be there right here at Urban Community School, 6 o'clock, August 23rd. Okay, so Mayor Bibb's coming. We're going to have an open conversation with the neighborhood and the community about what's going on at City Hall. So, again, want to thank you all for being here tonight and leaning in. We have 4 presentations tonight, or updates. I've been told if you could hold your questions and comments till after the presentation, that would be much appreciated. But we had some really good updates on Near West Recreation, Fairview Gardens in Ohio City, a proposal for Ohio City Dog Park, and then any other comments or questions. So, before we jump into that agenda, though, I want to welcome up a special guest, Nicolette. Nicolette is with Chula Indian Barbecue, which just opened up on West 25th Street. Absolutely, we can give that a round of applause. So, I will tell you that for a business to come into the community and immediately dive into our neighborhood by supporting Near West Recreation, by opening up a great Indian food barbecue on West 25th Street. I know Tom can reiterate this, but before they even opened their doors, they reached out to say, how can we give back? How can we be a part of this neighborhood? I think they catered tonight's food, so you get a first for, yeah, that's worth it, absolutely. So without further ado, I want to welcome Nicolette, who's a representative from Chula.
But I love being over here. Ohio City has opened us with welcome arms, or open arms. Raji in this picture. She's supposed to be here today, but she's
variety of things. I do youth community events. Large part of my job is overseeing Near West. You may have seen stuff in the newsletter about Near West Rec. Give you guys a quick overview if you've never heard of it. Got kids, families in the neighborhood that want to get involved. So Near West Rec started as Ohio City T-ball 2012. Kids playing T-ball at Fairview Park. In 2013, the league with now Northwest 8 Near West Side neighborhoods, and it's a partnership between the 4 For me, for a while it was just me, but now we've actually grown our budget. We've gotten sponsorships. We've gotten support from the city. Now to me, Christoph McGee, and a part-time staff. So if you ever see Christoph in the neighborhood, have kids, that's who you're going to reach out about programming. But we do all kinds of leagues, always year-round. These are kind of all of them. Cross, track, volleyball, and then we do some off programming. But most of it is for about 14 is kind of our prime ages. We sometimes get to high school age. Then we do specialty programs with some of our partners. We do work down in Lakeview, basketball. We work with some other partners in the different neighborhoods. So we do some different things. If we're ever doing programs that your family you'll see it in the newsletter. We have our own Near West Rec newsletter. We have our own website. So if you want to learn more about what's happening, just check us out. And I like to emphasize what we're about. Yes, it's sports, but we try to focus on these aspects of our league. We try to work with families to make sure they can. That's our number one thing. We want kids to have fun. We don't want them having to go to Lakewood or Brooklyn to participate. They get to play with kids in their neighborhood at their local park. So that's really our focus on our league. How it differs probably from other leagues that you see that are travel or club. But I came here today to talk to you guys about how you can get involved. It can be as little as just telling your neighbor that has kids about our league, signing them up. If you are the athletic or love children, we are always looking for coaches. If you have any interest in coaching, we will find you a spot. We will work with your schedule. We provide equipment. We provide you coaching resources. We work with your schedule, so we make it as easy as possible. Coaching. If you have little experience, we got little kids for you that are great. So we'll find you a spot. Another way you can be involved is we do some adult programming. We've done adult bowling at Dickey Lanes, which is right off West 25th. We've done women's boxing at a boxing gym off 25th, but they've recently moved to Trinity neighborhood. So there's some ways you can get involved that way. You can also contribute. We have a Champions Fund, which was just kind of seeded by Gatorade recently, but support a kid, $30, $40, $50 covers their registration fee. If not, you can come to our casino night event. It's right around Super Bowl, so a fun way to have fun, support Near West Rec. Or if you can clean out your garage, we got equipment, old baseballs, basketballs, cleats, shin guards, whatever you can. We like to give out equipment to kids that don't have a glove or they need shin guards or they need cleats. Number one goal is we want kids to play. So we don't want a barrier of not having equipment there. So clean out your garage. We'll take your stuff. And then the biggest one is small businesses like a Chula or like Ohio City Burrito, having them sponsor teams, business to give back and support youth. All of it goes straight into our programming. I cover the expenses, so we're always looking for ways. And then on the other side of my work is the neighborhood events, and I just wanted to share with you a few. We have movie nights. These are all free events in the neighborhood. Our second one is this Friday at Greenwood Park. We do activities before. We have two more, September 16th and October 7th. Hour before dusk, come out for activities. Right here, we're going to have a basketball shooting contest, some giveaways. So, Wednesdays, Thursdays. We have a full calendar on our website, but upcoming the next 2 Wednesdays, we have yoga in the park. We have flamenco dancing lessons and some African dance by the Music Settlement. So a few fun, free activities at Market Square Park for anybody and everybody. Got kids and family are going to be planning Halloween. That's my spiel, and I'm going to pass it over to Ben.
Woo! Hi. Yeah, so after that very uplifting presentation, I'm going to talk to you about a low-income housing tax credit building that we own here in Ohio City. So I'll try to follow it up with as much energy as Carrie Palma had. So Fairview Gardens, just an update for the community on this important asset that our organization has been dealing with for the last couple years. Fairview Gardens, for those of you who are not familiar with it, is a 40-unit low-income senior building that's actually located at 3207 Franklin Avenue. So it's on the southwest corner of Franklin and 32nd Street. It was developed about 20 years ago, actually, from on county that or land that the county, Cuyahoga County owned, actually, and under the leadership of neighborhood folks like Mr. Merriman and a lot of other folks who were concerned with affordable housing in the neighborhood. So this is a picture of the corner from Franklin and West 32nd Street. So we assumed ownership of this building a couple years ago on the end of the year in December of 2018. We were always kind of a tiny minority owner of the building, but we assumed the rest of the ownership to try to maintain it as affordable housing in the neighborhood. It's restricted to mixed income seniors, but most of whom are in the affordable area. It was managed up till recently by the Famicos Foundation until May of this year, and we have actually now kind of brought it back in-house for management in the partnership with Tremont West Development Corporation. So we now have a new property manager over there whose name is Anita Watson. I think folks who live near the building and who live in the building have seen a real difference, I think, in the management there and how the building's being taken care of, and so we're really happy about the way that's going. Fairview Gardens is sort of an aging tax credit project. Presents kind of some difficulties for our organization that we've been working through for the last couple of years. You know, for folks that provide affordable housing, it's always a struggle to get enough build, you know, affordable housing as well as to keep it well. So we've been dealing with a bunch of different issues. Actually, like 3 different ones. There's kind of some debt issues and some tax issues on the property also, and as well as, you know, some capital needs that we're going to have to reinvest in the building in a couple of years. So right now it's underwater on the first mortgage because unfortunately, you know, the income for that the building provides right now doesn't match up with the kind of outstanding debt. Function, it's frankly it's a pretty nice building as far as senior housing goes. It still has a lot of debt on it, though we've been working through this issue in a number of ways, which I'll talk to you about soon. So we've kind of been dealing with this debt issue for the last couple of years. It's been a little bit difficult to refinance because, unfortunately, like it's appraised at maybe $950,000. We think it's probably closer to $800,000, and it has $1 million plus in debt. Our tax issues, unfortunately, Ohio is a difficult state to own affordable housing in. If you look at many states across the nation, a lot of folks have kind of carved out niches for affordable housing, you know, and a lot of places they're taxed at a much lower rate than in Ohio. Public-owned housing, you know, things like CMHA, affordable housing owned by private owners or nonprofits are still taxed a lot of times at the rates that other folks are. And while there's an appeals process that you can go through for that, it's not always an easy one and can be onerous and expensive and difficult to achieve outcomes in, especially because of the so right now, unfortunately, in a neighborhood like Ohio City, where property values are rising really rapidly, that makes it really difficult to own an affordable building. So right now, our current tax valuation on it is about $3 million, and our tax appraisal value is about $900,000 because of the restrictions we have in place. Which has been a little bit difficult over the last couple years. We actually are currently appealing the 2020 years as well as the current triennial year of taxes. We did actually settle last week with the school district, who's usually the main, the other main party other than the county auditors, for about $1.1 million, which is above our rate, but much less than $3 million. Give a little bit of relief. And the other thing that we've been struggling building, it's 20 years old now, and things like heaters, water heaters, roofs like tend to start. So we have kind of a 5-year need for capital to replace things. Many of those things still are going bad on a so far, but we're looking at probably a short-term needs of maybe $250,000, about $500,000 over the next 5. So just to sum all that up over the last couple of years, and I think what you see here is this represents like a real investment in affordable housing that our board has taken on and has supported, but we've had some major losses at the building the last few years that have been a little bit difficult to support. Hoping that all of these different ways that we're working on the issues that I talked about will make it a little bit less of a problem going forward, but these are losses. And one of the ways we actually dealt with that is that we sold our old home actually, and used a large amount of the proceeds to kind of subsidize these losses over the last couple of years. So don't want this to be all doom and gloom though. So this is so we are working on all of these issues, and over the next couple of years, or we hope that we'll be able to write this thing. Tax issues we've settled on our years ago, and are working on a settlement for the next 3 years. On the debt, we actually have been spearheading a request for funding to the city of Cleveland for affordable housing for many other projects like this in the city. So a lot of our other nonprofit agencies that are like Ohio City own buildings like this, folks like near the Northwest Neighborhoods, which is Detroit, Sherwood, Cadell. Enterprise Community Partners has been part of that. CHN Housing Partners that owns affordable housing all over the county, Fairfax Renaissance, and the Famicos Foundation. We've all put in a multi-agency ask to the city of Cleveland to try to fund these aging projects. And we hope that the city will help us this fall when they're going through ARPA appropriations from the federal government to try to help buy down some of the bad debt that we've talked about, as well as help us out with some capital by the immediate problems. So if we ask what you can do to help, I mean, I know we have a really active neighborhood here, and a lot of folks who care about affordable housing. So, I mean, what you can do is email your representatives and tell them that you support using federal funds to help with affordable housing projects like this to keep our neighbors here. And I've listed everyone's emails here that you can reach out to. Councilman McCormick has been very supportive of this, from the outset, and is very aware of that. But he always likes extra ammunition when he goes into council meetings to say, listen, this is what my residents support. And certainly the other council folks that we've talked about are fairly supportive of this. But it's always good to coalesce around an issue and try to direct your representatives to what you think is important and how they spend their money. I have a half an hour, so I think I have another 20 minutes. If anybody has a lot of questions on this, we have plenty of time.
If anyone has any questions, you can just step up to the
Curious. Thank you very much for your presentation. If there are a couple
So absolutely. So those are buildings that, if you look at this slide, the Northwest Neighborhoods Coalition is actually part of the ask that we put into the city of Cleveland. We own those buildings in partnership with the former Detroit. They're in similar states, though not as bad. Thankfully, they haven't been hit quite as badly with the kind of tax evaluations that we had with Fairview Gardens, because it was a new construction building. And they also weren't saddled with as much debt. While they still have a lot of outstanding capital needs that always need to be dealt with, they're in better shape financially than Fairview they would still, still like very much could use an infusion of capital.
Yeah, 100,000. Explain the difference between.
So the difference, let me go back to that slide for you. So the difference here, you see the current tax valuation is $2.9 million. So the current tax valuation of the county is $2.9 million, which is what they would base it on, thinking about, you know, market rate rents. But unfortunately, our rents are restricted, so we can only charge a much smaller portion of that. So, and you're seeing this, I mean, we're probably hit worse than any, you know, than any building. So that's the difference. So $900,000 is actually what it should be appraised at per the rents, and $2.9 million is what the county has it appraised at now. And unfortunately, you know, when the county goes out to appraise all these buildings, it's a massive undertaking. You know, they do this every 3 years, and so don't really have the ability to go through piece by piece and try to figure out individual situations like this that are more complicated than regular apartment. All of the properties in an entire county. And so they do it on a much, you know, larger and broader basis. The problem is for folks like us who are small actors who are just doing this from a mission-based perspective, you know, it puts us in sort of a defensive posture where we have to fight this valuation for years. So in the longer answer, yeah, what you have to do with the state, I mean, our state legislature has seemed fairly unsupportive of changing laws around affordable housing. And in fact, a couple times over the last couple of years, they've actually tried to change state law to actually make sure that buildings with restricted incomes are actually taxed at market rate, even though they don't get the same. So I mean, I think the best thing you can do is vote and put folks in power that that agree with, you know, that folks should be provided affordable housing. But otherwise, I mean, I think you can also petition your, you know, your state reps and change. Really, it needs to have carve-outs for affordable housing in state tax law, which I don't think revenues very much. What ends up happening is are the attorneys that represent both parties, frankly. And there's probably a whole industry wrapped around that. I think, like, long term, I mean, we really need changes to state law that carves out affordable housing, especially for folks that are Well, right now, we have a building that's really difficult to refinance, frankly, because it doesn't actually make enough cash flow to support a new loan on the debt. So I think there's a couple different scenarios. We're still looking for other sources so we can hopefully find it. But I think our best shot, frankly, is with the city of Cleveland. Partner in these things, and especially housing, whose 10-year housing plan actually spells out, you know, saving affordable housing as much as possible. So I think that's our best bet. I wouldn't say that's our only one, but obviously, if we don't have some kind of funds, then it's going to force you know, we could raise rents, we could do things like that, but we're trying to keep as many folks in place as possible and try to do the right thing by the neighborhood. You know, I honestly, CJ, I don't have an easy answer for that, but we will give that some thought, you know. I think like, I mean, there's actually lots of like, you know, crowd raising platforms and stuff like that, that folks like, if they're interested in the neighborhood, could probably donate to that, you know. So I think there probably are some other things that we could do to assemble a lot of other funds elsewhere. We're trying to kind of take out the big one because, you know, if we don't have a building to figure out later, you know.
The city. It's just not going to happen. It's going to take some work. It's going to take some. Last thing I'll say too is, board and you listen to our hearings on ARPA funding. Housing the unhoused. What the heck can you do? The meeting next week. Tell the mayor this. Table, and you know.
Hi, my name is Trinell Garrison. Not just Fairview Gardens. Approve these tax breaks for people to come in and build up. Who were the people you were trying to attract? So again, you need pretty buildings you have.
Let me be very clear. Everyone's welcome in this neighborhood. Lowest income person or the highest income person. Background, your race, who you love. On the question of affordable housing, if a private property owner that owns their home for one, land that the city owns. Exactly why 5 years ago I froze land banks in Ohio City. Exactly why exactly why we invested in things like Forest City Apartments at the corner of 25th and Detroit. That is exactly why when we're looking at different things like tax abatement, we just reformed the tax abatement code. When we're looking at things like other taxing options, we require affordable housing within it. There's no easy answer to this question, and I am not going to stand here and say that the government is going to block private home sales that increase the value. We can't do that. One thing, if you know me, you know I'm not going to tell you something that can't be done. So what we can work on are several things. When we have public land, when we have tax policy, to your point, that we're reforming that we're holding public land for affordability. We've had a long conversation about the McCafferty Health Center and its future. That will be affordable housing. So when we have the legal opportunity, leverage, and ability to build affordable housing, to preserve public land for affordable housing, we have done it, we are doing it, and we will do it. The other really important piece to this is valuation. So one of our biggest issues is property values going up, and then the taxes go up, and folks can't afford those taxes. We have been lobbying for years and are finally gaining some traction to change the state law to allow municipalities to cap tax increases for income qualifying folks in our community so they're not pushed out of the neighborhood. We cannot do that by law without state law. Again, I'm not going to stand up here and promise things I can and cannot do without telling you, leveling with you. We can't do that without state law. We are pushing. We have an entire statewide coalition with Columbus and Cincinnati and Dayton to get the state law changed so that we can cap folks' taxes so that they are not pushed out because of rising values. So I hear you. Yeah, and so the apartment that was built on a parking lot, yeah, and I'll tell you, there's a lot of folks that also argue that when you have a high demand, if you don't meet supply, it pinches the price point. So if you look at a place like German Village in Columbus, where they don't allow pretty much any housing, they're 3 or 4 times the cost in Ohio City. So there's a lot there. This is a topic we could take 4 hours on. But I hear you. Look, I sit in people's living rooms who are crying because they have to leave their home because of their taxes. So, and I've been in those living. Yep, yes, ma'am. And I sit in those living rooms myself. So, and truly, when folks leave the neighborhood because they can't afford the taxes, that deteriorates our neighborhood, and that is exactly what we've been telling folks about our need to be able to cap tax increases on seniors, folks that want to stay in the neighborhood, folks that love the neighborhood, have been here for a long time. County raises their valuation and their taxation, and they can't afford those taxes. It is a big problem, and we are pushing the state to allow us to cap those tax increases to ensure that folks are not kicked out of their homes like that. But I will tell you again, you don't have to, it's not aspirational. We've already done it. We have frozen the sale of public land. We've established a land trust that will create permanent affordable housing in the neighborhoods. When we have control of land, McCafferty Health Center, for example, we are solely building affordable housing in those places. It is not a fix-all. People have, left because of the increase in the valuations, but it is something that I know Ohio City, myself, the mayor, we hear, we understand, and when we have the ability to make that change, we are doing that. And again, if somebody sells their home privately for a bunch of money, that is their prerogative as a landowner. Again, it is a deep, complex issue, but I will tell you that one of the beautiful things about this neighborhood, it has been welcoming for many, 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 many years. And I just want to make sure that, no matter what your income is, no matter what your background is, no matter who you love or what you look like, you're welcome here in the community, and that has kind of been a cornerstone of this neighborhood for a very long time. It's a complicated question, but it's a great question, but it's a lot there.
Thank you, Councilman. I have two more questions back here in the back, and then I know we need to move on in the agenda. So.
Without
So ma'am, I wouldn't say that we would ever make anybody homeless without just cause. And month-to-month leases aren't, the reason we would put anyone out. Usually, probably you signed a 1-year lease when you signed your lease, and it then reverted to month because you didn't re-sign another one, long-term. That's not the situation we'd usually like to be in as a property owner, and that's something that our new property manager would be taking care of.
question. You, when you guys charge what they want, shouldn't there be some kind of stipulation that maybe you can give us 10 apartments for affordable, 5 apartments affordable, or you can't get this land? That's the land person's decision. That if these developers are going to just develop for people who are affluent, then maybe they should have a cap on their apartments. They should have some for affordable. If you're going to build here, we can allow you, but you need 10 to set aside, 10 apartments for my residents, because they live here.
Sure.
I need 10 apartments for my residents. Is there something in that development, buying the land and saying we want this abatement? In order to get the abatement, you need to do something. They're just coming in here building.
Yeah.
They're not doing anything.
Sure.
That's my question.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. So let me separate out a couple of those things because there were a couple of ideas in there, Debbie. So most of the time, the land is being transacted on the private market. So I don't have any control over that, nor does most people in this room, right? So it's not something that we can put conditions on, our organization can put conditions on, et cetera. But what we have done actually in the past is work with developers to do exactly what you're talking about. So the Snavely building that I believe somebody brought up before at the corner of West 25th Street in Detroit, it was built on a parking lot. As part of the community benefits agreement that we and the city of Cleveland and the councilman's office all kind of negotiated, they actually built 240 total units in that project. So there were 40 actually low-income housing tax credit project units in that building right across the street at Forest City Apartments. And there were 200 market rate units built on the northern side. They also put in pathways that connect to the bike paths there and provided some extra bike paths as part of that. And they also provided space for things like the music school settlement, which is a really high-quality pre-K establishment that now serves the Newer Side. So we actually have been doing that even without selling the land, Debbie. The problem is, I don't have that power to assign that, unfortunately. As the councilman was talking about, like publicly available land, the city has frozen, and we have been working with the councilman to develop affordable housing on that land. And there's lots of other parcels that the city owns that the councilman is committed to doing exactly what you're talking about. We've also done that in other projects where we've included a small amount of affordable housing in those projects and made the developer provide it for it, you know? The problem is there's just, I mean, on a macro level, on, you know, the entire nation, we're not building enough housing at all. We are not building anywhere near the amount of housing that we need to. And so I actually don't see, you know, market rate development in apartments, things like that, as being the enemy. I think it's that we are not providing that in all neighborhoods, and we don't provide enough subsidy to build those units for people that can't make the rents, you know. And that's a problem we have nationally. It's a huge policy question, and it's a problem across the nation. And I think if you look at other neighborhoods in the city, while we're experiencing it in Ohio City, I think because of the innate desirability of this neighborhood and what a lot of the neighbors here know about this neighborhood is that it's great, it's welcoming, it's vibrant, it's got a lot of great amenities, it's got the West Side Market, it has transit. This is happening across the city and across the nation in every neighborhood right now. It's that we are not creating enough housing, and it's becoming increasingly unaffordable for everybody to own housing.
Ben, I'll say just a word while I bring this back up here to Tom. But Chris Schmidt, I'm the board chair for Ohio City Incorporated. Just to close this out, we got involved in Fairview Gardens because affordable housing is vital to this neighborhood. We believe that as a board. We believe that as an organization. This was a way to put our money where our mouth was. As Ben mentioned earlier, we sold our old headquarters primarily to cover the cost of acquiring this. With that, number one was do no harm to the residents. That's been the promise all along from us to you and from us internally, and what we've held the staff to. Our number one obligation is to make sure everybody inside that building is protected. 3, the board is committed to figuring it out. That's where we're at. You saw all of the organizations up there on the wall. We are doing everything in our power to find ways to put the dollars together to keep that building as affordable senior housing. The option 3, I know the question was asked of what happens if. We're not even talking about what happens if. We are to the point now, stop before option 3. We're going to figure out option 1 or option 2 and keep it as it is. That's our promise to the neighborhood, and we're going to keep working until we figure that out. Dog park.
Yeah, up next, dog park.
If I could just selfishly interrupt for a minute, we haven't thanked Urban Community School yet for hosting and for all the good they do, so I just wanted to thank Urban Community School.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. We're here just to talk a little bit about proposed dog park that we are trying to get in our city. So this is the timeline, just a quick rundown of where we're at. Basically, during the pandemic, when we were all stuck, a lot of us congregated with our dogs at Fairview Park because there wasn't really a whole lot of places to go. And that was kind of became our social network. And from there, we started talking about how we would like to be able to have a place in our neighborhood that was fenced in for our dogs to be able to exercise, so that people that were either afraid of dogs or they were afraid of their children interacting with them, we didn't have an issue, which was kind of percolating up a little bit from that. And so the suggestion of Councilman McCormick was to form a steering committee to look at different options throughout the neighborhood to be able to find a good location that would be able to work for us to be able to do this. So we looked at several different areas, 4 or 5 different site areas within the neighborhood itself, and we determined after a lot of discussion that the area behind Novak Park where the playground is was probably our best option. Since then, we've had regular meetings and planning sessions with steering committee meetings, Councilman McCormick, Ohio City Inc., and several city officials to be able to figure this out. That was a way that was going to be equitable for the whole city. And like, as far as things go, we're not really a perfect group of people by any means. We're just a community-driven project. There's a lot of moving parts and a lot of different things to be able to have to be figured out. Our goal is to be able to have phase 1 open by this fall, but that's obviously subject to change. So, like I said, why a dog park in Ohio City? It's one of the most densely populated areas of our city, and it's also one of the most dog-friendly. And I mean, you can walk at any given time of the day. At 6 o'clock, you could see 15 dogs within 30 square feet. You know, I mean, they're everywhere, which is great. It adds vibrancy to our neighborhood. And there was a sizable uptick in dog ownership that happened during the pandemic, where it kind of exploded. And now we have, you know, more dogs than kids in our neighborhood. I'm probably right on that one. And a lot of these dogs don't really have a place to be able to exercise in a fenced-in area, which can cause some safety issues and some bickering back and forth between neighbors who don't like dogs off the leash and the neighbors that are like, so the addition of the dog park will allow for a secure and safe place for them to be able to play. There's no designated area other than the zone recreation and the beach at Edgewater Park for dogs to be able to play in a secure location that's fenced in. A lot of people want to be able to play fetch with their dogs and do a lot of different things. I've lived in several different cities and there's dog parks everywhere. And we could really use one in our neighborhood. So a centralized dog park kind of solves a lot of the issues that we have between dogs playing off of the leash and causing issues with New West Recreation and all of those sort of things. So we decided to look around. It's pretty inexpensive to build a dog park. For the most part, we're going to be paying for it out of fundraising efforts and grants and things like that that we're basically doing as a grassroots type of thing. City is not going to be paying for most of it. So the benefits, it adds a sense of community. It brings people together. It allows people to build social connections like we built during the pandemic and connections with each other through their dogs. Also, if you've ever watched a bunch of dogs playing and enjoying themselves, it definitely has a positive emotional and social impact for the dog owners, for the dogs, and for people that are just there watching. Having a designated area where dogs could safely exercise is a great idea for a very dog-friendly neighborhood. There's an abundance of community support behind this. Most dog owners and non-dog owners who believe the addition of dog park would be a great thing for our neighborhood. It'll also add more foot traffic, community usage, some vitality to a park that is a bit underutilized, and an increased feeling of collective safety to that area itself. In terms of like why that space is actually great, it's because it's the most centrally located throughout the neighborhood. Doesn't have a lot of automobile traffic. It's highly walkable. There's always people walking around that area with their dogs. Most of the area itself is already fenced in, so to be able to convert it, it's going to be a fairly easy conversion. And it's a very underutilized park and needs some revitalization. So having a dog park in this location would create a large, more foot traffic in the area behind the library, which is, you know, at nighttime can be a safety issue. And people using the dog park itself are going to bring more foot traffic to our area. And as you know, most of the restaurants in that area have patios and they all allow dogs. So, you know, grab your dog, have them exercise, and then go get a bite to eat in one of our awesome restaurants. So, in terms of the current conditions of where we're at with the playground itself, the playground equipment is quite dated. Some of the sponge stuff that's underneath some of the stuff is also moldy and has a lot of moss growing up on it. There's a lot of trash problems in that area, and it has some upkeep issues. And for the most part, there's a lot of other playgrounds in the area itself that are more useful. And I believe in terms of the whole plan of Novak Park, there is a plan to be able to replace that playground element with another one as well. So we believe that just given the location and the tree coverage and everything else that's there, it would be a great thing for our neighborhood. So with that, I am going to give the mic over to Julie, and she's going to talk about where we're at in terms of phases.
Ryan, my name is Julie Idowin, and I've been a resident in Ohio City for going on I'm the proud dog mom of an Old English Sheepdog and a German Shepherd mix. My husband and I are also expecting our first child. And so I say that I have a very vested interest in my dog children as well as my human children's future. And recreation for both of them. So here we have our phase 1 plan at the Novak Park, or Ohio City Park at Novak Park. You can see the Fulton Court along the back edge, and then West 38th along the bottom. Much of what is there will remain as is in terms of fencing. And so our goal is to remove the current playground and swing set equipment. The benches could stay for people to sit on while they are playing with their dogs or visiting with fellow community members. And then we would close in and fix the areas of fencing that need to be fixed. And then we could open. It's a beautiful shaded-in space. So our goal is not let perfect impede possible. And so we do believe that we can open and proceed with this plan, one, knowing that, as Ryan shared, we do have fundraising to execute as a group in order to build upon that for phase 2 and beyond. Here we have phase 2, which along Fulton Court, we would build out much more landscaping to create more welcoming environment for all of the neighbors and wanting to engage and make sure that it's a welcoming environment for all Ohio City Park at Novak Park. We would hope to also install at the bottom, you can see if you have ever been to a dog park, many have a gated enclosure where that allows dogs to come out safely versus just one gate. We also would want to, after we remove the current playground equipment and swing sets, reinstall over the current rubber pads, grass, or gravel, what we can best and most appropriately. And then depending on growth and need, add in potentially a small dog area or not. So we can grow and develop as our community grows and develops, provides feedback and buy into what may be a best plan to move forward with. So again, our cost and fundraising goals. So we will be engaging in fundraising in the community. You'll be hearing more from us about different events that we will have going on in order to build funding for us to maintain and build this community dog park for ourselves and for our dog children of all creeds and colors to come and enjoy this space. We want to begin with the $75,000 fundraising goal that will help to provide fencing support, again, the gated enclosures in and out. Over time, we can add features like water bowls, additional water features, some mobility equipment for dogs to play on. I also want to thank Nate Lull and Ohio City Incorporated. They are acting as our fiscal agent, so you won't be writing checks to any of us. It will be to Ohio City, and they will be the holders of the funds in order to distribute. Some rules and regulations. So if anyone has ever been to the Zone Dog Park, it is time. It's 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. It's not an all-night thing. Lighting that would be better and safer for everybody, regardless of use of the park property. We would post what those signs or those rules and regulations have signage identifying the transition in time. And so we've talked a lot about as a group, and we'll continue to work as a group with all of our different coalitions now used as a Ohio City dog park, so someone wouldn't unknowingly enter it who may not be a fan of dogs. So, we certainly would want to be clear and appropriate with what our documentation and our signage is. So finally, we do want to hear from you. We want to have engagement. Rochelle will have sign up. We also have information sheets. You can get involved. We do have a Facebook group as well as our emails that you can reach out to. Last slide. Questions now?
I'm Maggie Breloff. And first of all, we had a conversation earlier about affordable housing in this community, part of this community, and who should be part of this community. I really hate when I hear that this park should be changed for the sole purpose that it is not being utilized right now, because that's simply not correct. There are people that use the park. Maybe they're not you, but that doesn't mean that people aren't using the park. And second, I want to talk about the community engagement process that has happened for this project so far. Over the summer last year, I saw some postings on social media about the idea of using this park for a dog park, and I had the same thought. You know, this isn't an unused park, but maybe there's a different use that makes sense for our community. And then I had a second thought that was there are a lot of houses that are very close to this park, and I wonder if they've reached out to those people. And so I asked that question, and I asked that question again in my block club meeting, and the answer I got was, oh yeah, we've reached out to them. And then I didn't really hear much about the dog park for the next 10 months. So I kind of assumed that they'd found a better location that wasn't immediately adjacent to people's homes. But in June, we got a flyer, which is how I know that they reached out to people. And it was 2 days before the meeting. I wasn't able to make it to that meeting, but I went to the meeting this week. And it kind of sounds like the project is already happening and moving forward. Really just like to understand, like, is this just like the majority has dogs and therefore we will have a dog park? Or are we considering the needs of the people that are currently using the park? Are we considering the needs of the people that live adjacent to the park? Do we have any rules that determine how we should set up a dog park in the community? I know there's only a couple in the city. I looked around, I didn't see that. I don't know if we have that dog park guidelines, but a few other cities have set up that sort of thing. And looking into it, they recommend that a dog park should be somewhere from 50 to 200 feet from the closest residence. That map that we looked at a second ago, you can see one of those houses maybe 3 feet from the dog park. Imagine if a dog park moved in 3 feet from your bedroom. That doesn't sound like community engagement. That doesn't sound like being a good neighbor. I would just like to know that, like, when we're talking about this community and being inclusive and doing the right thing, are we actually talking to everybody and paying attention?
Good afternoon to everyone. After sitting here and listening to Councilman McCormick and his eloquent words on how inclusive this neighborhood is, welcome and maintain all residents, that struck a place with me. Truthful with me at this point. Live exactly 15 feet from the pending dog park. I don't think anyone took the time to reach out to me. I certainly did not learn about this dog park until a flyer. Lived in my home for 18 years, going on 19 years. Good standard in the neighborhood. Influx of new people. With that influx, you guys signed off on certain things and certain orders. I would have hoped that you had anticipated that with people come pets. And they too like to sit outside. But with that being said, a lot of people here that want this dog park, will you be here another 10 years from now, another 15 years from now, another 20 years from now? I know I will. My window faces directly by that dog park, 20 feet. I am standing right here. That dog park will be no farther than that chair after the split there. And I do understand the challenges that we currently face with Novak Park. I have no good answers. I pray for good answers, people who are in positions to make better answers and choices. Because as humans, we all deserve some type of right. However, as a citizen and a good standing of Ohio City, 18 years, my home, and rights and consideration, any other home. It doesn't matter how affluent someone may seem, how uninfluent someone. What matters is that I pay my taxes. I don't cause ruckuses. And I have 19 years in November, the day before Thanksgiving, will be 19 years. So, Mr. McCormick, Ben Trimble, when you talk about inclusivity, when you speak about this works for everyone, I invite you, Mr. Trimble, and each and every other person in this room to please walk by 3814 Fulton Court, and you ask yourself, really an interest of the community, or this interest of people, the influx of new people here that owns dogs? Now, I've looked at several dog parks, and none of them, not from Tails to Tap, not on 53rd Street, and it's definitely not the one by Clark and Quigley. They're not by homes. They do not disturb anyone, and they have much more room to run freely than the space that people are so good. It's only good for who? It's not good for me. For 18 years, I've dealt with the elements. I'm not going to sit here and judge those elements. But I stayed here because I love here. And I'm asking for someone to be fair and impartial when considering me, because no consideration to this point has been given to me. I do have a right. So I ask you, 3814 Fulton Court, take your time, walk by, ride by, and you judge for yourself. You judge for yourself who this park will serve. This is definitely not serving me. And it's not going to serve 3816. It's not going to serve 3800 Fulton Court. It's not going to serve any of the homes on Fulton Place. It will serve only the people that want it for themselves. Thank you so much. And thank you, Mr. McCormick and Ben Trimble. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Good evening, guys. My name is Tom McNair. I'm the executive director here at Ohio City Incorporated. I want to actually go back what Councilman McCormick said, starting by thanking Tom Gill and the folks for Urban Community School for continuing to host us here month after month. It's a tremendous resource for our community. Also would like to thank Chula. Nicolette was here, Raji, Randir. They have been an amazing asset to our community already. I think you heard some great things from Carrie Palma on Near West Recreation. As she said, Near West Recreation was something that was started 10 years ago, making sure that those sorts of opportunities were available to everyone in our community. 54% of the kids who take place in Near West Recreation need some sort of financial support to participate. By financial support, that means that we end up paying for that. And so, you know, I think interestingly, Chula coming in, 30% of their first day of sales went into Near West Recreation. Almost $3,000 they donated. So truly a business that is giving back going on here, right? I also, you know, I think this is a great conversation tonight. I know that we've had this in the past and we'll continue to have ongoing conversations around affordability in Ohio City. You know, this is such an amazing community, and every time we have this conversation, you know, I look out here and we have 50 plus people here tonight, and I think that if you ask 50 people what is affordable to you, you're going to get 50 different answers, right? And that being said, we know that it is a responsibility of our organization as this neighborhood grows, as it changes, that we do things to help in ways that we can. And so if I could for a moment, members of our board of directors, if you could please stand up, kind of give a little wave. Right, I see Chris, Gigi was here earlier, Kathleen Niddle, Jonathan Floyd, Chrissy Wells, Laurel Mittner. You know, it was about 4 years ago we came to our board staff with the idea of taking on Fairview Gardens, right? They didn't have to do that. We knew it was something that was not going to be financially advantageous for our organization, and they took the time and they stood up and said that this was important to them. We sold one of the best assets of our organization, $1,000 in Fairview Gardens as we go through this. Ben Trimble, who has just done a ton of work in trying to untangle that. This is not an Ohio City Incorporated problem. These low-income housing tax credit buildings, right? Again, across the city, nonprofit partners, when they hit that post-year 15, when the tax credit runs out, when the tax abatement runs out, they become very challenging. But Ben's done a great job managing that. Again, I cannot thank Councilman McCormack enough for his leadership in all of this, not just with issues surrounding Fairview Gardens, but as he mentioned, one of the other things our board did was create the Near West Community Land Trust, permanently affordable housing in the community. That wouldn't be possible if Councilman McCormack had not frozen those lots as we continue to work through that. And then I also kind of want to thank the folks from the dog park here tonight, Ryan and Julie and Rochelle Coyne, who at least I know Rochelle has been a longtime neighborhood resident who has raised her family. You know, I think one, as we started that process, you know, groups come to us all the time and say, why can't you do this for us? And well, the reality is that there's 10,000 plus people. And so we said, well, if you're willing to put in some work, we can help facilitate that. This is part of the process, right? I think that this is part of being heard and knowing what's going on through here. So again, I think all feedback is good feedback as we continue to navigate our way through the process. But most importantly, I am grateful for everyone who is coming out and participating in this. This is how we learn as a community. This is how we grow as a community. And so, you know, with that, again, thank you all so much for coming out tonight. Thank you for those who tuned in online. I did just want to say, if you can, please show up next Tuesday. Councilman McCormack, Mayor Bibb here talk about a lot of the exciting things going on in our neighborhood. And then also Michaela Lowry back there with our Special Improvement District. Next Wednesday, August 24th, there is a community cleanup. Detroit Corridor taking care of Franklin Circle. So again, a lot of great things going on. Thank you guys all so much for coming out tonight. Look forward to seeing you next month.